Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And let me tell you, today's case, it's a doozy. We're talking about the Yuba County Five.
Ah, yes, the Yuba County Five.
1978, five young men head out after a basketball game and poof, vanish. Cars found abandoned up on a mountain road, snow everywhere, and it's just the beginning of the weirdness.
Oh, yeah, it gets much stranger, trust me.
So strap in, folks, because we're going deep on this one, trying to figure out what happened to these guys.
A real head-scratcher. We've got abandoned vehicles, a mysterious trailer in the woods, and a whole lot of unanswered questions.
It's a case that's stuck with people for decades, and for good reason. It's got this eerie resemblance to another famous mystery, the Dyatlov Pass incident. People even call it the American Dyatlov Pass.
Yeah, I see the similarities. Remote location, strange circumstances, a group of people just gone. It's definitely got that chilling vibe.
But before we get lost in the theories, let's start with the basics. Who were these men? The Yuba County Five.
Right. Well, they were all from Yuba City, California. Pretty tight-knit group of friends, all young men, each with some mild mental or physical disabilities.
And this is something that becomes a pretty big factor as we go through this, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It plays a huge role in trying to understand the choices they might have made. So we've got Jack Madruga, he had epilepsy. Jack Hewitt had a developmental disability. Then there's Gary Mathias, described as, well, kind of childlike, really. Bill Sterling had a limp from a childhood injury. And finally, Ted Waher, a bit shy and introverted, kept to himself.
Okay, so a group of friends out for a basketball game, nothing out of the ordinary, right? What happened?
Well, that's just it. They're supposed to be back home that night. Routine trip. But somehow they end up on this totally different route, miles off course, on a snowy mountain road. No GPS back then, remember. Winding roads, snow, not familiar territory.
Yeah, easy to see how they get turned around, especially if the weather's bad.
Exactly. Disorientation, panic, it could happen to anyone in those conditions.
But here's what gets me. They leave a perfectly good car behind. Why walk away in that kind of environment?
Right. That's the first big mystery. Why abandon a working vehicle? And it's not like they were fleeing in terror. Some personal belongings were left inside the car.
Almost like they chose to walk away. But why?
$1 million question.
Okay, so they're lost. They ditch the car. And then months later, a Forest Service trailer way up in the mountains becomes part of the story.
Yeah, and this is where things get, well, let's just say things get even more bizarre. Turns out some of the men had been holed up in that trailer. They found canned food, blankets, even a wood-burning stove in there.
So they had shelter, supplies, warmth. Why not try to get help?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, they weren't that far from a road, but no one seems to have tried to walk out. And this is where those disabilities we talked about earlier really come into play.
You're thinking their cognitive differences might have affected their judgment, their ability to really understand the danger.
Exactly. Think about it. Hypothermia, it's a real threat in those conditions, and it can mess with your mind big time. Confusion, disorientation, bad decisions. It's not just the cold, it's the mental impact.
Wow. Yeah. And then you factor in their disabilities, how that might have influenced their perceptions of the situation, how they reacted to fear.
Absolutely. We can't just assume they saw the situation like we would. Their decision-making process, their responses to stress might have been totally different.
This is getting really eerie. And tragically, 4 out of the 5, their bodies were eventually found.
Right. Some near the trailer, others spread out along the path that might have led back to the road. And one of them, Ted Waher, he was found miles away in really bad shape. Signs point to him surviving for weeks, maybe even months in that trailer.
Months. But there was food, supplies. Why not try to make it back to civilization?
Another one of those unanswered questions. It just adds to the puzzle.
So we've got the disabilities possibly influencing their choices, but are there other theories out there? I mean, foul play? Maybe?
Oh, for sure. Some people lean that way. The circumstances are definitely suspicious, right? But there's no direct evidence to support that theory. Could they have run into someone out there? I guess it's possible.
Or maybe just a series of bad decisions, getting lost, panicking, and things spiraled out of control.
Could be. It's hard to say. But that lack of concrete answers, that's what keeps people coming back to this case, trying to piece it all together.
Lost in the wilderness, facing the elements. It really makes you think about how those conditions, their individual realities, shape their experience in those final moments.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. We're trying to make sense of it all from our perspective, but what if their perceptions, their understanding of the danger were completely different? What if that explains some of the choices they made?
Chilling stuff. The Yuba County Five, a case that really challenges our assumptions, reminds us how complex the human experience can be, and leaves us a whole lot more questions than answers.
It certainly does.
Thanks for joining us as we explored the unsettling mystery of the Yuba County Five.
It's been a fascinating, albeit troubling, look into the unknown.
Until next time, stay curious.
And maybe keep a map handy, just in case.
Good advice.